There is a problem in America seldom discussed by our candidates. It's not Donald Trump, it's not our immigration, but it's Democrats and Republicans and every other political party you can think of. Because of a word known to us as partisanism, or hyper-partisanship.
Okay, speaking on partisanism, if you're talking about politics, it can be a good thing because you have more than one perspective, and it's good to have people that can, take a side. But it's bad in the sense when people go too much to the ends and the extremes and can't come together and work together to come up with a solution to a problem. And there are a lot of problems that are partisan politics, and one side is saying one thing, another side is saying another, and they can't agree to find some kind of compromise. So it can be a bad thing. I think in the United States, because we have two sides and only two sides, it makes it a little difficult.
Hyperpartisanship is where you would allow yourself to stick to things that you don't believe in on that side of the aisle, no matter what.
Stay in line with your party regardless of your actual political beliefs. It's a characteristic of partisanism that we can see in our lawmakers in the recent impeachment vote for Donald J. Trump in 2019, where the vote was almost completely split between party lines. Partisanism can also affect us in our social lives. In a 2018 study administered by Liliana Mason of the University of Maryland College Park, findings revealed that being of the same political label as somebody else would increase your chances for social interactions such as being neighbors, being friends, or even getting married by up to 30%. To illustrate the effect of political parties on voters, we devised an experiment where we would have 5 different candidates of different political parties, but we would switch their ideologies so that they don't necessarily align with that party. We would then have a small sample group of respondents answer a survey in which they would choose which of the 5 candidates they would vote for in an actual presidential election. Some interesting data we got from this was that even though 71.5% of all the respondents had liberal viewpoints, only around 55.6% of the respondents voted for our liberal candidates. Another interesting thing is that there's roughly the same percentage of Democrats as there are Democratic votes, and though there's a lot more Republican votes than there are Republican voters, this is largely due to the fact that from our sample group, there was a lot of unaffiliated and third-party voters that did not have a candidate to directly default on. The big takeaway, though, is that 16% discrepancy between our liberal voters and our liberal votes. 16% might not sound like a lot off the top of your head, but let's put it in perspective. In 2016, Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton 304 electoral votes to her 227 electoral votes. If he were to lose 15.9% and she were to gain that percentage, she would have beaten Donald Trump 275 electoral votes to 256 electoral votes. So yes, 16% matters. Another interesting piece of data we got from the survey was how often our respondents will look at candidates on opposing political parties. 43% of them would say not often or never, 42% sometimes, and a relatively small 14% saying often or very often. To put this in perspective again, let's look at the 2016 presidential election. There was 23 main candidates you could have voted for, and if you were to never look at any of the candidates that were not on your political party, and you were, say, a Democrat, that would mean that up to 80% of the entire candidate pool would be written out for you. And while you may not completely agree with all of them, it's still worth your time to check them out. To write them off completely based off of their political party is highly presumptuous.
Hyperpartisanship really destroys the fabric of our country and our government. It doesn't help anyone to stick to one side based on just pure political beliefs. And I think it's in the best interest of the people of this country that politicians, no matter where you stand on each side of the aisle, stick together, actually work together. There's too many politicians that will lean to one side just because they're on that team, just because they're on that side of the aisle. We have to wake up and we have to vote in the right people.
Political parties and hyperpartisanship have held a heavy name in American politics for decades on end now. And more than ever, in this modern age, we need a candidate that's willing to stand up against them. A candidate willing to fight the very system that may get them elected. A candidate willing to take the chance on their constituents. That we're going to vote for them, not because they wear red or blue or have a D or R next to their name, but because they're the right candidate to choose. We need a candidate that's willing to be a candidate, not a label.